Namaste. So tonight in Satsang, I wanted to talk about some misconception and hopefully go from there into a deeper experience of what our self, our real being actually is. It's important as soon as possible to have an experience of what you really are and to learn to access your real self consciously. We all already are the infinite being. There really is only one of us here talking through many bodies, experiencing through all forms, experiencing itself. But as human beings, we have the privilege and the honor to be able to consciously come to see this, which no other species can do. And so satsang is the most important thing that we can be spending our time doing. And I just wanted to talk about something that's come up several times this week in questions and challenges with people. And it's something that happened for me as well, and is extremely common. So we may have a seeing that we're not our body, that isn't fundamentally what we are. We may be aware that it can't be my body because I can perceive it. So anything that I'm looking at, I'm aware of my body. It can't be the fullness of what I am. And many people have that seeing fairly early on. I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotions, I'm not my body. But this seeing has to go a little deeper, because they'll say, well, I know I'm not my body, but I'm still having this issue. So I want to really sort of go into that tonight. And if you want to follow on with what I'm saying, you will hopefully come into a really deep experience of what you actually are. So it's one thing to say I'm not the body. It's another thing to recognize what that really, really means for you. Because if we're not the body, then anything that is happening in this body here, I must discard and discount as my definition of myself. Anything that happens through this body or relies upon the body to happen is also eventually has to be discounted. So what does that mean in practical terms? It means that anything that's happening in my biology, so my thoughts, my emotions, my any sensations in the body itself, all these have to be discarded as my as what I'm going to use to define myself. As human beings, we're always referencing our mind, our thoughts, our emotions, and even our experiences to tell us who we are and what we are. But can any of those things happen without your body, or are they part and parcel of having a human body? So when we look at it this way, we begin to strip away what we can call myself. So if we're having a challenge with thoughts or emotions, then we can see that perhaps we haven't fully recognized what it means when we say, I am not this body. Everything that happens that depends upon your body has to be discarded in this. You have to basically stop including it in your definition of what you are. So that means, I'm not going to define myself by what my mind is doing. I'm not going to define myself by what my body is doing or not doing. I'm not going to define myself by my emotional state either. These things are still going to continue. Your body isn't just going to disappear. You may be feeling an emotional state even now in the body. There may be thoughts going on. But if we're aware of our body, then this cannot be what we are. We are looking at our emotions. We're looking at our thoughts. We're looking at our body. And not in the same way that I'm looking at you through this, through the internet now, not with my physical eyes, but we're looking at our body with our awareness from a different place, removed from the body. This also means that you can't define yourself by your experience. Is there any experience possible without a body? Is there any experience possible even in deep sleep or in deep, deep meditation? That's gone too, hasn't it? Is there any possibility of even the waking state that's happening now arising without a human body or in deep sleep? That's gone too. So we're beginning to strip away what it really means, that when the fullness of what this means hits you, do we have any reference point left without all of these things that we take for granted? If you listen to any human being talking about themselves, describing themselves, telling you how they are, what's going on in their life, they'll be referencing their experiences, their thoughts, their emotions, their relationships. All of this depends upon our body. And if it's not present in deep sleep, and then it is not fundamentally what you are. So why do we have this almost obsessive tendency to define ourselves based on our experiences and our thoughts and our emotions? Well, it's really because we tend to have a fear of not having a reference point. Like if you don't count your body and your mind right now in this moment, what do you know about yourself? What can you say about yourself? If we're not referencing our experience, how we're feeling, how we're thinking. I mean, do you even know where you are without this body to reference? We say, I'm here, but we're really talking about this particular body, or whichever body you're listening to this, watching this. So along with thoughts and emotions and experiences, and even the waking state, sense perception, your relationships, your perceived world that happens in the waking state, all of this has gone without a body. All of this comes with a human body, capacity to think and feel and experience. There's nothing wrong with any of it, but to clearly have a seeing of what we actually are, we have to, just for a moment, not reference things that don't actually, that belong to us, but they're not us. So our mind, our body, our experiences. Anything at all that you say my and not me, my body, my emotions, my thoughts, my day, my life, my relationships, my children, my waking state even. So if you allow this to kind of really hit you, perhaps the first thing that may occur is a fear may come, because our usual way of defining ourselves is based on all of these things. But what can you tell me about yourself if you're not going to reference your mind or your body or your emotions or even your experiences or states that are coming and going in the body? You may be experiencing a state of fear from this, having no reference point. But again, that is an emotional response, and it's not original to you. You may be experiencing confusion. Your mind may say, I don't really get the point of this, or I'm not sure I'm doing it right. And again, that is a state of mind. So we can leave that one aside just temporarily. We're not trying to get rid of anything. We're just clearly defining and discerning what we can actually use to reference ourselves, to define ourselves, to describe ourselves. So what is left then without all of this to define your real self? If you're not referencing thoughts and emotions, experiences, do you know what you are? without any of those? Do you know even a sense of time and space without those? Can you have a sense of time and space and movement and change in deep sleep or in deep meditation? All of this is gone even under anesthetic while the body's still here. And of course we can enjoy them. We're just looking clearly, just setting aside and discriminating between what is me and what is mine. Because what is mine is going to go. This body will go. The thoughts will stop. The emotions will stop. The experiences will stop. All of that will go one day. But if we can recognize what we actually are without referencing these things, then we'll have no more fear of the body leaving when it goes. So what can you tell me about yourself now? What problems do you have? What do you know about yourself now, with all of this taken away temporarily just for your definition? And again, if there's fear, it's really only because we've thrown away our GPS temporarily, our reference point, and where we're going towards awakening, or all of that has disappeared temporarily without this referencing of what we are not. So can you find any answers to this question when you ask, what really am I then, without all of these reference points? What is left that is fundamentally what you are? There is just you left when we don't count our body and our thoughts and our emotions and our experiences, even our waking state. There is just you. Can you say even what that is? And do you need to, without the mind there trying to define? Is there anything at all you can tell me about your real self, other than it is, it exists? It's not something you can see with your eyes. It's not something you can understand with your mind. And normally, in our human existence, we are taught to try to understand something with our mental faculty, our intellect. But this is something different. This is something that just is, and is beyond understanding. You can't come to know what you are with your mind, because it's invisible and intangible. But if you stop trying to think about yourself for a while, and you just notice that you are still here, even when all of this has disappeared, from your self-definition at least, and you allow that to really sink in deeper into your experience right now, that you don't really know what you are, and that you can't really define that. Allow that to really penetrate the core of your being. That every being that has woken up to the truth of who they are has had to come to admit this very same thing that we're understanding right now. That there just is nothing I can know about myself. I can know my mind, I can know my body, I can know my emotions, I can know what I'm experiencing through the body. I can know if the waking state's here, and I can use that waking state to communicate. But about myself, what can I say actually? Is there anything at all I can define about myself, about yourself? And if you allow this, this is one of the most direct ways into a real seeing of what you actually are. For once in our life, it is totally okay to not know, to not be able to understand, to not get it. You're not going to get it in the classical way of, understanding suddenly happening in our mind. It's a seeing of what you really are is indefinable and indescribable. And a letting go of that human desire to be able to understand it here means it'll be immediately present as obvious as what you really are. Because even if your mind could understand this, at some point your mind is going to leave when your body leaves. Even in deep sleep at night time, your mind is completely silent. So what you really are is access through I don't know, and I don't understand, and I can't define, and I can't describe. And that is an unfamiliar ground for human beings. Just what is it like to not be able to understand at all? How does that make you feel when you really allow that in to the core of your being? When I finally stopped trying to understand that which was indefinable and indescribable, there was just an amazing joy of not knowing and allowing that to really penetrate. There was just this absolute relaxation that I'm not something that I can define with my senses or my mind at all. Like they just cannot grasp what I am, and they're not supposed to either. So just for a moment, I'd like to invite you to not know anything about yourself, which is the fastest and most direct way to experience that self. We can either try to know about it through our mind, or we can experience it right now. The only place perhaps in the entire human kingdom when it's okay to not know at all and to not know anything. And it's a wonderful feeling if you allow it completely. If there's any fear, it's only because you're not fully allowing what that means, that you don't know. You are the unknown place itself from which all knowledge arises, all thoughts and emotions and experiencing arises, from which your body arises. And if you are allowing yourself to just not know, to give up in this moment trying to define yourself, then you experience something very, very different to what is normal for a human being. And it may appear that those beings that have woken up to the truth and are living as that truth have really figured something out here that perhaps we feel as human beings we haven't yet. But it's actually directly the opposite. They don't know anything at all about themselves. They have come to see again and again and again that what they are is indescribable, intangible, ineffable, not understandable with the mind, but you can already just be this completely. So what does it feel like in your mind and your body when you just don't know? When there's an acceptance of the fact that you will never understand yourself, ever. No matter how long you try for, what you are is a mystery, an unknown, unseen, yet ever-present mystery. If there's anything that the great beings that have woken up know, it's that they are sure that they don't know and that they never can. And they have absolutely relinquished all urge to find out what they are. They would rather experience it and be it than understand it. They would rather be living in the constant noticing of that which is indefinable. And then rather than trying to figure it out. So how long does it take to have this direct experience? As long as it takes for you to not know and to fully allow what that means. It's absolutely failure to the mind. The mind wants to figure it out, to understand it before we be it. That's the usual human way. You know, I want to train for 4 years to understand what it is to be this. Like for myself, I did 4 years studying at university to be biochemist, and then I was told I was a biochemist after that. Everything else I've ever done has followed that same pattern. I want to understand it and then I'll do it, I'll be it. And it's exactly the opposite here. The very moment you just stop trying to understand anything about yourself, stop trying to define anything at all, stop trying to figure it out. And you can do this instantaneously. Anything that you figure out in your mind anyway is temporary, because it's going to go when the mind goes, it's going to leave. But you will still be here. Right now you're here. You were here before the body, and you'll be here after the body is gone. You just admit to yourself inside, I don't know what I am, and I don't have to find out. That perhaps this place of not knowing is much more delicious than finding out and thinking about. And you can do this with the rest of your life. You cannot know about anyone else either. You cannot know about the world. You cannot know about awakening. You can have no ideas about anything. Even if your mind is still talking, mind is offering you options of things you can know, you can pick up if you want to. But you can just as politely say, no, thank you, I'd rather find out, I'd rather experience. What is it like to not know anything about yourself? To not know who you are, what you are, where you are, anything at all. And this is only what is already true for you, already. Without this body, I've got no reference point for myself as to where I am, at all. Even with this body, I know where my body is, but I don't know where I am. I know what my body is, but I don't know what I am. I can only describe myself in negation. I'm not a tangible thing. I'm not visible to my eyes. I'm not audible. I can't hear anything. I don't feel like anything. I don't, there's no smell to me, no color, no shape. All of this is only applicable to my body. There's nothing for me to compare myself with. And it is the end of knowing here. Nothing wrong with knowing. It's great for the rest of your life and every other human endeavor. Just try for a moment, if you want to not know. Just put down this burden that we've given ourselves somehow to have to find out what we are. What you do find is the total unknowingness, not knowing. And when that's allowed fully in this moment, it's absolutely okay to not know anything at all. To just be empty, and even you can just forget what you know, what you think you know. What mind thinks it knows is borrowed knowledge anyway. It can only know about things. It can never know you anyway. Trying to understand yourself through mind even is not going to get there. Can you allow the fact that you are this beautiful mystery that can never be known in an objective way? I can never come to a point where, I know what I am now. And what is absolutely terrible and failure to the mind is the most beautiful human experience of all. To absolutely fail to know and understand anything about yourself. This is how I first came to this first experience of what I really am. Absolute failure, consistent absolute failure of my mind to understand. There is just a dropping of, I can't try anymore to figure it out. You can drop that right now in this moment. I hope you're having a taste of how wonderful it is to not know anything at all. You can walk around your entire life like this. Anything you need to know in your mind will pop up when it needs to be known. When it's time for your body to move, it will move. Things will get done. And you can just not know at all what is going on. Have no clue about anything and see how you feel. I remember when I really figured this out, understood that this is the place of not knowing. Because I'd been worshipping these great beings that have woken up, revering them, and wondering what they'd found out that I hadn't as yet. And after a while, it was just quite funny that they knew less than I did, that they knew nothing about what they are or what anyone else is. They knew nothing about the world. They certainly knew nothing about the self or God. And they were in this perpetual, stateless state of not knowing. They had even forgotten how to remember. They didn't value any knowledge, not even knowledge of the self. They were just empty, totally empty of concepts already. Whether mind was talking with concepts or not was irrelevant. They didn't know anything at all. You can step into this right now. Do we really ever know anything anyway? Or are we just referencing what our mind thinks about it? If you are this beautiful mystery right now, and so is everyone else, then how real is any of our knowledge, actually? Or is it just labels and remembered concepts based on what we think is happening? And you can even ask this question inside your own heart. What is it like to not know anything in this moment? To not know you're not awake enough yet. To not know what peace is or what suffering is. To not know any of these concepts. To not know how far you have to go or how far you've come on your pathway. Can you in this moment just let go of all your knowledge? Just be willing to let go of your knowledge in this moment. It will be done for you. And there is an incredible experience of your real self, which can be constant. It will seem to disappear again if you pick up some knowledge, if you pick up some idea like I've lost it now, it's gone. Just because mind starts talking again, have you really lost it? Just because mind knows something, do you know something? So this is my constant experience of just not knowing anything. And if I've achieved anything, I've been only really good at not knowing anything. I went through school, I went through college, I went through university, got a degree, went through life, ran all these businesses, and finally arrived at where my cat is, or where an infant is, but consciously not knowing anything. See if there's anything missing from your experience when you don't know anything. See if you can walk around like the Avaduta, which means, the sage with no pockets, or the other translation is the naked sage, where there's nothing to hide any concepts. Can you walk around like this? Can you go to work like this? Can you talk to your family like this? Can you drive your car like this? Absolutely. All you have to do is be willing to not know, and then to allow yourself to fall in love with how that feels. You don't even have to know how to do it. Just be willing to forget what you think you know. None of this knowledge that you're struggling with in your mind is original to you anyway. It's gone completely when the waking state goes. It's not present at all in deep sleep. How many thoughts can you take with you when you're having an anesthetic and they're asking you to count backwards? You can't take anything, any thoughts or any suffering with you into that place. It's just coming to recognize that consciously. In deep sleep, none of us know anything about anything. There's no time, no space, no experiencing, no body, no awareness of the body at least, and no mind. All of that has gone. My world, my relationships, everything is absent in deep sleep. Because we don't know, we're not thinking, we're not referencing thoughts. The potential to start referencing thoughts is still there for most people, and they begin to do it again when their eyes open. If you'd like to experience what this is like, then you can do this with your eyes open. You can be walking around, talking, but feeling exactly the same as in deep sleep. There's just nothing, and no concept is valid to you. Again, if there's confusion in the mind, I don't really understand, and that's a really good thing, because it means you've reached as far as your mind can go. You can just tell your mind, that's okay, I'll take it from here. What if I don't need to know, actually? What if I don't need to know anything? Is there any concept that's true for you? This formless mystery that you are. Who are you when you don't reference thoughts, or your body, or your emotions? And how does your body feel when you're empty of self-concepts? It's a simple and beautiful forgetting and not knowing and not understanding. So one of life's little paradoxes, that the highest human experience that anyone can have is really the exact opposite of what you think it would be. Absolute failure to find out anything or to know anything about myself. And it took me as long as it took to come to this point. And you can experience this point now where you don't know anything. There's already a silence in your being, a place where there isn't any knowledge, anything held onto. You don't have to create this, just have to be willing to not know. And you'll automatically become the unknown, which isn't a scary place at all when you actually experience what it's like to not know. Okay. I will open it up for questions, or if anybody wants to share anything, their experience. If you want to ask a question or share, then just click on the participants at the bottom of your screen and click the blue hand to raise your hand, and it'll let me know that you want to ask a question or to share something. I'd really encourage you to come forward with your questions. This is the simplest state of all, perhaps the most misunderstood, or paradoxically, that there is some knowledge to know, there is something we need to know. Okay. Steve?
Hello, can you hear me all right?
Can you?
Yeah. It's been lovely, Satsang.
Fantastic.
I sort of had some questions, and as you were going through Satsang, and I were getting to that silence, and I thought, does that negate the question I want to ask? Anyway, I thought I'll ask it anyway. If it's a question at all. I think last time we spoke, I can't remember exactly when it was, but I'm more or less, I think I said I'm starting on Dissolving Ego, of course. I'm going to go through it again, set it in my own pace.
Yeah.
And then a couple of questions were, if something crops up, ask if it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And if the belief that I'm not safe, I think that's what it was. I've got to ask that question: am I safe? Am I not safe? You know,
yeah.
And I've been working with them things, and fair bit of success. You know, that's what I call success. It's been pretty good. Over the last couple of days, it seemed my mind started playing games again a bit, and as you know, I do get a bit tired. And I started getting sleeping a lot. I wanted to sleep a lot. When I was waking up, I wasn't sleeping at nights, and then the shoulds and shunts started. Got the lovely weather outside now, going back to bed, and you know, all that sort. It started to gain a bit of momentum. So much so I went out yesterday out to Flamberhead, chasing. I'm a bird watcher now. I'm not really, but I thought I'd go for a change down at cliffs and stuff. And I quite enjoyed it. I mean, it was nice, the place, you know, the sea gill. I saw everything by the puffins I got to see, but a lovely day out. But there's still that something lacking. And I think I was talking to Geordie about what I'm trying to do on this, and he said, "What's this about? It's just no everything, Steve." Oh. And it sort of rung a bell, because I think I've heard you say it, but I've heard Mooji say it. It's effortless. It's effortless, you know. But I seem to be putting a lot of effort in.
So what are you trying to do then? What is the effort being put towards?
Yeah, here we go. I'm trying to stop this low mood, whatever it is. I get a lot from coming in, and it's coming back. So I put more effort into the question, blah blah blah. But
so if you couldn't, hypothetically, if you couldn't be aware of this low mood at all, if you couldn't see it or experience it, would you care whether it was there or not, whether your body was feeling it or not?
No, not at all.
So there are two ways to try to deal with it then. There's one to try to get rid of it when it comes.
I suppose that's what I'm doing as well. Yeah, it is.
And so the question is going to take you to a place where you can't really notice it. Whether, you know, the more attention we put on thoughts and feelings, the more of those we're going to get. They'll be perpetual and unending.
Right.
Even if we're looking at them to see if they're still there. You know, I asked the question.
I'm always doing that. Yeah.
I asked the question, I go to the silence, and then I'm kind of like,
yeah.
You know, what's mind up to? What's mind doing?
Have I sorted it out yet?
Yeah. So if we accept the fact it might be there, but if your attention isn't on it, if you're watching the silence, the noumenon itself, the real self, then you don't know anything in that place, as we were just experiencing.
Yeah.
You don't know what the mind is feeling, thinking. You don't know what the body is experiencing. You don't know anything in that place. If instead I know that I'm feeling this way, then my attention, or your attention, has gone back to the phenomena of feelings. So it's just with this question to, if you can see that there's a place where it doesn't matter what your body is feeling, and it's not a cold thing for the body, it's just to understand that I'm never going to fix this by watching this thing and hoping it goes away. Because you're so powerful as the self, anything you put attention on is going to stay and multiply. Even if you're looking at it to go, why is it still here? Why hasn't it gone yet? Has it gone yet? Why are you still here? You know.
It's back again. Oh, it comes.
Yeah. So I don't know now what my mind is doing at all. The states that the body feels are the result of thoughts believed, always. Emotional states are the result of believing thoughts. And if you are so in the place of the unknown, I don't know anything, then you cannot be identifying with mind at the same time. The body will naturally relax. There'll be a sense of openness, a deep silence. So the question needs to, you need to ride this question all the way home to freedom, not just temporary relief where I felt a little bit of silence. Let me go check if it's gone away now, this state that I don't want. Got to ride it all the way to the absolute silence where you don't know anything and stay there.
Day in, day out.
Yeah, all the time. Okay. All the time.
So that's effort. That's actually, so I'm asking you about the effort.
Is it effort? Is it effort?
I don't know. So I'm asking you. I'm not sure. Feels like effort.
Mm-hmm. It's effort if you are coming from ego, but if you're asking a question, is it really true that I'm not safe? Then immediately, effortlessly, right now, there's answers coming to that question. Right now, these words are an answer. Your body's there. There might be sounds in your environment. There might be thoughts coming, emotional answers to that question. All of that is happening in response immediately to this question. And this present moment, the intangible moment of now in which your body and the question is appearing, is also here. How much effort did it take to notice that present moment? Or was it just seeing? You can't see this moment like you can your body or your thoughts. No. But it is definitely here. And it's that construct, that intangible mystery, the unknown part of you in which all of this is happening. So just a seeing, isn't it? Did you have to put any effort in to see this moment, or did you just shift your focus?
Shift my focus, but the effort is continually shifting focus. I think maybe that's...
Is it an effort though still, or is it turning away, a shift of focus? I'm looking over here and I'm going to look over here. Is that hard work?
No, I'm happy with that. I'm all right doing it. Just when you said that, I thought I might put too much effort in it. Am I trying too hard? That's what I'm asking you, really.
There's a difference between efforting here and consistency. Consistency is key, but not necessarily efforting. We might have to kind of remember to remember. Oh, I've gone back to focusing on the phenomenal answers to this question, the thoughts, the feelings, the experiences. Let me go to instead that place where I don't know any answer to this question. Or let me be that place in which the phenomenal answers are just arising, the thoughts and the feelings. What can trouble you then in that place there? So there's a remembrance that has to happen, but it's not necessarily going to be hard work there. It'll become joyous actually to just not know. Because when you're feeling this state, you're very sure that this is this low state. It's the same thing, it's been here before. It's going to stay for as long as it stays. I've got to pull away from it. It's affecting me. All of this is known. Right. If you forget those concepts, immediately you'll be back in the unknown. Or if you're just not so sure that they're true even, you'll immediately go back into the unknown. Bird singing there to celebrate.
Yeah. I mean,
immediately, if you're troubled by the state that comes and goes, immediately you know something then, don't you? You've picked up some knowledge. I know this thing is here and it's affecting me.
Well, I'll go. So when I said I was doing pretty good with it, when I got into my head for a while, I sort of realised even that's okay, and I could feel happy with that. I found out what we're doing, you know what I mean? But I don't know, the doom and gloom starts to creep in, and I can't get.
Can this be affecting you if you are not your body? If you're aware of your body, and emotional states and thoughts happen to your body, is this really affecting you? Remember, in our self-definition,
This is what I can get in split seconds. But
yeah.
I
So
know what you think. I know what you say.
It has to be cultivated, a consistency to question: is this affecting me? You know, as we discarded the body and mind from our emotions from our self-definition temporarily, you can do that permanently. Yeah. Your body could be feeling any particular state, and you go to sleep at night and it's gone.
Gone, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it, yeah.
So is it really affecting you? That's the thing to really sort of look at.
I will.
Lovely.
I'll keep asking questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Lovely. Gainer? I just ask you to mute yourself there, Steve. Thanks.
Hiya.
Hiya. How you doing?
I'm all right. You? Hello, everyone. So, yeah, I just had a little bit of, and I was just listening to you there during Satsang about the unknown. There was a little mind kicked in a bit with some doubts, and I thought I'd just mention them.
Yeah, yeah.
How can you trust the unknown? Like, what's unknown? My mind was saying to me, how do you trust that that's the absolute, you know, like, so I just wanted to ask, really, how can I question those doubts?
Well, let's look at what we know. Is
Yeah.
that so reliable? Is that so reliable? You know, the mind says, what I know keeps me safe, and going to this unknown place where I don't know anything is going to leave me exposed and vulnerable, or some, you know, it'll say something like that. But is what we think we know true anyway? You know, if you if we all read a book in Satsang, and I asked everyone that was listening to give me an opinion about what they thought about it and to quote a passage back from it, I'd probably get all these different opinions and ideas about what they'd heard anyway. So what we know is very subjective. You know, I could take 15 people to see a particular place, a place of natural beauty or something, and there'd be 15 different opinions about that place. You know, so it's not even this satsang, there'll be all these different ideas about what people got out of it or understanding from it, etc. So is what we know very reliable anyway? And even if it was, would you want to rely on it when it's going to disappear? Is it kind of the most intelligent thing to do, to rely on knowledge, what I think I am, what I think about myself and the world, when it, you know, all of that has disappeared? It's totally reliant upon the waking state, you know, to have all that knowledge, isn't it? It's a function of the waking state, really. Is it so? And this whole doubt from the mind about trusting the unknown is based on the assumption that you're going from the known to the unknown.
Yeah.
And that's simply not true. If this experience of what you really are has taught us anything, it's that I already am the unknown. What I think I know is about what is not me. What I think I know is about my body, my mind, other beings, my relationships. All of that thought knowledge is really dependent on what is not me directly, what I call me, on what I call mine, or my body, my relationships, my life, my work, my desires, my goals. You know, so is there anything that was reliable knowledge about you? When we actually look, Is there any concept at all, any thoughts that are relevant, that have something important to say about the self?
Well, not any concept, but then there's the thoughts like being infinite and everywhere and those kind of thoughts. But they still relevant.
Are they still relevant, or do they still depend on a body that's going to go? And it even depends on the waking state. Depends how much you want to throw out. You know, if you want to feel really happy, then I would throw it all out. Anything that you can't take with you when the body goes, or even when the waking state goes. Is it really that intelligent of us as human beings to kind of rely on that only for our sense of well-being?
Right.
Can mind ever know of the self anyway? There's nothing wrong with mind, but it can only know about things. You know, you could think about me and you could think you know me because you have all these thoughts about me and memories and experiences and all of that. But is that the same as actually knowing me? Or would you have to be me to really know? You know, like the old saying, to walk a mile in a man's shoes before you really know what it's like for him.
Well, yeah, you'd have to be you to really know.
So can thoughts ever access that type of knowledge? Even thoughts about the self?
No, yeah, okay, yeah, I get that.
So mind is like a mechanism for comparing things. It can compare self to mind, to ego. It can say, well, self is invisible, mind is visible, you know, body is visible, tangible. But can it really know what the self is? You know, so when you really sort of look at this, it becomes much easier to know that no concept is relevant to me as the self. Knowledge and thinkingness and all that is great for the rest of the world, but for the purpose of finding out what you actually are, you can only be it, experience it.
Right.
Mind won't understand this, so it raises these doubts because it doesn't know what it is to actually be it. It can only ever think about things. So mind's objection is valid to mind, and it's fine. But is it going to, it's good to question these things and to look at them, these doubts. You know, is it really safe to go into the unknown? Well, if you're already that unknown, how unsafe is it?
Yeah, and I suppose it's only unknown to mind, isn't it?
Exactly. That's so profound what you've just said. That's so profound. It's only unknown to mind. You're already being it. You're just coming to consciously see what you are. Already I don't know anything about myself, and I never have. All of your knowledge that you've acquired throughout your entire existence has been about your life, your mind, your likes, dislikes, your body, your relationships, everything that is not you in your primary state, if you will.
Okay.
Everything you know about something is not the same as being it. The more you sort of contemplate this, you can sort of just let go of this sort of automatic default go-to reference library being mind, and just actually the default becomes experiencing it more and more.
So even when mind says, oh, like about life, like I know what it was like on so-and-so year back, something happened and maybe it was something unpleasant, or you know, so I know what that was like. So is it really questioning that and saying, well, the mind thinks it knows what it was like, but
yeah, does those memories, you know, I remember being really shocked when I realized I figured this out, that what I think, if I think about something that happened 10 years ago, I only have my reference of what I think happened on that day, that time, that experience. What I thought about it and what seemed to be happening is all I can remember. And what seemed to be happening is based on what I thought, you know, in thought about it. And it may not be at all what was actually happening.
yeah.
So we've all got these memories that are like, this is my life and it's absolute. But it's really a reference library of what mind thinks about my life.
Mm.
You know, it's not, again, if I asked 10 people to recall an event that they were all at, they would give me 10 different recollections of that same event. You know, it would be a totally different experience based on what each person thought was happening, and therefore was recorded and remembered in the memory.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're not making mind wrong here. That's really important. We're just seeing that it's not quite as reliable as we've given it, you know, to actually understand what we are. It's not quite as reliable as we had hoped, perhaps, in this area.
Yeah. And then mind says, well, you've missed a lot of experiencing, but I suppose it's only that's only mind saying that.
Well, when you let this hit you, that perhaps nothing you've ever really thought has actually been that way, you'll immediately access that real being that is has just been ever present constantly. You won't have any sense of having missed out on anything, you know, because you've always been here, you've always been this. It'll just kind of deepen into that seeing.
That we've never missed out on anything.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been always right here watching what mind thinks and what seems to be going on. It's just been completely, you can never be absent ever from anywhere, any atom in the universe. You're there first.
Yeah.
We don't want to let this idea in that perhaps thoughts aren't as, you know, my memory isn't reliable as we think, because we fear we're going to lose a lot of things. But you see if that's actually true when you let go of it and see what the actual lived experience of it is.
Right.
And I know you are doing that. I'm not saying that you're not, but it's good to clear these doubts up. You know, is mind a valuable tool for referencing the self? Not so much. You can only know about things.
Yeah.
And with this, you can only be it. You can only know what you are by being it, being that unknown. And you're not changing it into that. You've always been that.
Yeah. You just thought you were a body.
You've never known anything about yourself, ever. You know, what mind thinks it knows is about what is not you, you know, other than you.
Right, okay.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely. It's good to talk about the doubts, you know, because we tend to just avoid them or try to sweep them under the carpet. But if we sort of intelligently look at them, it's a lot easier. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. Thanks. I'll listen back as well.
Thanks. Nikki?
Hi, Helen.
Hiya, how are you doing?
Okay, I'm good, thank you. Hi, everyone. Well, right, well, I wanted to start as usual by just saying thank you. Thank you so much. Honestly, I've been on this path a little while now, and I have to say this week, since Sunday, genuinely something has definitely, I've had such a release. And I think partly it's just lovely being in a community with other like-hearted people on the same journey when you've been sort of doing it on your own for so long. And also so much of what you've said just really rings true, just such at a deep level for me. And I had the most wonderful day on Monday. I went for a walk and it was like me and the birds were like one. It was just amazing. And then I got up on Tuesday and it was like, I realised now in hindsight, because I had such a wonderful day, I wanted Tuesday to be the same.
You had an expectation,
so
then, yeah.
Oh no, I've lost it. You know, it's like, oh, I've lost it. So Tuesday was like, oh no. And then I went and watched some old Satsangs that you'd done in February. And oh man, it just like spoke to me so much. And again, and then a friend of mine messaged me this morning, and one of the questions she put is, so how's Nikki? And I answered back and I said, you know, if I answer honestly, I'm not sure Nikki's still there. You know, I really feel that Nikki's not there. You know, and I was walking along today and I felt like there's no history, there's no future.
Yeah.
There's just this big empty vastness of now. You know, like obviously I if I look back in my history, I've got some story. There's no story anymore. There's no past story, there's no future story. And sort of thoughts are coming up, but I can sort of see them for what they are. I guess that would be a better way to say it. I can sort of see them for what they are rather than you know, them taking me on a wild goose chase sometimes for weeks, months, years.
Yeah.
You know, so but it feels more. Monday was like a sort of euphoria. Tuesday was the other way, but now it's like I feel like and it's natural. It feels natural.
Yeah, you'll
So,
just you'll experience the natural state more and more, where it's just open and vast and thoughts are just floating by. Every now and again you'll pick up some of those thoughts, you'll start to know things again, but you'll recognize that much quicker because you'll feel the difference in your state change. Oh, this is a bit icky now, you know, so you go, oh, let me just drop that, whatever I think I know, let me just forget it again. And it becomes much more natural and fun to just, I don't really know anything actually, I'd rather be in that place. And it's just, identity is shifting, what you know yourself to be. You're still here, but not personally, not as a separate being, you know, and the idea of who you thought you were will float by every now and again and say something. And it's just kind of practice, if you will, or a self building a little bit of muscle to just go, you know, I'm not gonna pick that up. You know, I'll just let that one go by. I'll let this one go. Oh, I picked it up. Okay, let me drop it again. You know. And you'll notice very, very quickly, instead of, like you say, going off on a thought stream experience thing for months or weeks, it'll just be so much quicker that, ew, that feels a bit yucky compared to what I was, that vast open expanse. It's wonderful to hear. Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Anytime we're suffering, it's only that we've picked up a thought again. You know, we know something about us.
And it's like what you saying. I feel such a joy, but like this deep joy that actually I really genuinely don't know anything, and it's absolutely pure bliss. To not all my life I've tried to, you know, obviously, I mean, I've shared before, coming from, you know, being a heroin addict, and I was diagnosed schizophrenic, and so I clearly didn't know anything in that respect, but I tried everything to get better, and obviously part of getting better in rehab and this, that, and this is looking at yourself closely, and I've dissected myself in so many ways, you know, over the years, but actually they're not knowing anything. They're not knowing anything about me is absolutely just the most liberating thing ever. You know, when I think of all those years of trying to work out why this happened and who did that and whose fault was it and this, that and the other.
All the knowledge we have about awakening, all the knowledge we have about our seeking, all of that just piles on, weighs us down. You know, and it's just such a joy to just
and I realised that, you know, I think it was something you said on Sunday, and I thought that was me. I've just been trying so hard, and I had this picture in my head of what I should feel like and what it should be like if I were awake properly. You know, so I've had sort of glimpses, but I thought, no, this is what you'll be like. You'll just, you know, you'll just love everyone, because I think we all have a desire. Well, I do, just obviously to make a difference, firstly to the people around us, and so you want to be this loving being, you know, and when you're not, you're like, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. If I'm, you know, awakened people wouldn't say that or do this, or so then, I mean, that's me. I go off then somewhere in my head, you know, So I think I just feel like I've taken so much, there's been so much pressure, you know, being released. That's all I feel from Sunday, was just a real release.
It's like some big
it's all okay.
heavy burden has just been let go of, hasn't it? It's
Yeah.
wonderful. And enjoy it. You know, it's it can happen very quickly when you're ready like that. Just to forget what you think you know, it can just be very natural and quick.
Yeah,
And
because
you'll be a little bit tested. Things will come up. You know, you'll be offered things by the mind, let's just say, but you'll sort of really, I don't really want to pick that. You're not making it wrong. You just don't want to pick it up.
But what's happening now is when I'm doing that, my mind actually starts hurting. You know, like physically, I can feel this like contraction going on in my mind that it's trying to work something out.
And you'll feel it in your body too. You'll know when you've picked something up. Yeah. Which is what your body is there for as a human being, really. Ultimately, is to your body will tell you whether you're focused on your idea, what you think you are, or whether you're focused on your real self. It'll tell you immediately. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's good to hear your progress.
Thank you, Helen.
Lovely. Sharon, last but not least.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. You know, I've been just been in a good place, you know, particularly with reading The Reality Check and Dissolving the Ego, taking it very slow, sitting with it, not wanting it to finish a book. This is usually because I'm impatient, you know.
Nothing wrong with that. I want my awakening now. I want it now.
And the books that I've used have been big, and so they would bother me, you know, but these books are just, we had a very good time in the Sangha last night. I felt very alive. I was laughing, and I was really sensing that I've never been this body. And, you know, and then Helen's here, and Helen was in our group, and she was talking about cemeteries and all the things that we scared ourselves with. You know, I was just having a great time, and I went to bed thinking, well, I'm the infinite, you know, that was the end of it. And then as soon as the morning came, I was fine. I woke up in a great place. Then my son called me, and it seems like life likes to use them as places to get like this.
to test you a little bit.
Yeah, and I have to say that I went into dread because he's upset about his health. Something's going wrong with his health right now. And he's panicking, and he's starting to act like he's 5, and he's 36. And I'm just saying, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I feel this dread and really anger. When does that stop? Because you're a mom, like, how do you do that with kids that just push? Like, you know, my older son said to me, my God, nobody in the pandemic is busier than you. You're always listening to sad songs. Like, I enjoyed the pandemic. I'm not upset at all about it. I just want to be the infinite and stay there. And it was like, I think it was Steve that shared that he has, because I get that dread, and I have to be okay with that, because that's just the interpretation of the mind bringing me back. Oh, you see?
So what is it suggesting to you, that dread? What does it suggest to you that you're still picking up?
That I'm not the infinite, that I couldn't possibly be.
So is it some sense that that something happens in the outside world, you're feeling really good, something happens in the outside world, like that phone call, for example, or and you feel this dread? Is it really a sense that you're going to lose something, or you're going to, you know, something has been lost? You know, what?
I would think in memory, because the mind's so used to patterning loss. Maybe it's either around my child, or maybe it's around someone else, you know, or sometimes it's about my, you know, look at you, my mental health, you know, it'll, because, you know, when I was not aware of phenomenon, and I only knew myself as ego, I would be very upset with these feelings. I've been doing great. I mean, the one thing I want to ask you, if this is helpful, and I guess I should try it myself, when you say it's happening it's not really happening to the unaffected. It's only happening in this mind. And mind's trying to come up with an answer. One of the things that I did do years ago, and I didn't know if it was right, in the Course of Miracles, it says, use the proper use of denial. So just say, I'm not that. I don't have to go there. And see if
That works. If that works, great. But I've found, you know, and I do that with a lot of things. You can just brush them aside. That's not me. But sometimes, as we've done some contemplation, some questioning on something that really comes up, and for me, when it came to my awakening, if I would seem to lose that piece, something would trigger some emotion, some fear or something. It was the suggestion that was offered by mind is you've lost it, it's gone, you know. And I so much wanted to feel that I really got scared when the idea was suggested that I could lose it, you know. So that was my question then. Can I really lose this? Can any emotion, can any state of mind, can any outside event cause me to lose this? And it's true for mind, because mind isn't, we're going to experience it as a separate being, experience truth, experience peace. But if you are that already, can you lose it? You know, because it won't be an experience then. So there's probably a little bit of dread coming up that something can happen that will trigger you to lose the peace. You know, that's.
I would think that's it. Yeah, because you know, I'm already the beings that are outside of me are helping me, really. I mean, they don't know that, but I think that's all part of what this is. So he called in a panic, and he got, you know, he got like a lot of kids do. You know, they get, even, it doesn't matter how old they are, they scream, you know, they get annoyed with their mother. Now, I know that you dealt with this, so I can just say, be okay with that and just let it just sit.
For me, it was the places in my life where I was still believing that something could pull me out of the self.
Right, and I think that's it, the mother thing.
And being a mother, naturally we want to give everything we can as a parent. But there was this idea that that something would change, you know, being a parent, that I could sit in my peace and everything was great, but then they would need some help, or something would go wrong, or something would happen and it would pull me out of it. And I recognized that was the feeling of dread, like, oh gosh, I'm going to lose it again. It was so painful, the idea that I could lose that peace. So I really questioned, can I actually lose it? Is it an experience, you know, of the self, or is it always here? And it's just that my attention may go to something out there, or some thoughts or some emotions inside, you know. So if you really sort of look at that, really hold that question, can I ever lose this? Even though we seem to experience it, we still question. I still experience losing it, but I'm not going to accept my experience as an answer. I'm going to find out, you know, what happens when I don't have any idea inside me that I can lose it anymore. And it cannot be gone because you're not gone. You know, attention wandering to thoughts is not the same as it going. And then when that's really being seen, even when a strong emotion comes up, or lots of thoughts happen, or something external in your world, you'll still feel that same peace and fear.
Right here. It's right here. It's, you know, it was kind of like, I repeated this last night, and today with Michael we were talking, and I said, it's so obvious that this body couldn't be here without this.
Yeah.
So how arrogant I feel that I thought I was an independent, separate self, that my brain was functioning. And now it does make me laugh, because I think, like, how could that, it makes no sense that we're that.
Where does it all come from? If this is what I am, this separate being, where did I come from?
Yeah, how can, and then I say, well, how can my husband not see that he's not that? Because but you're sleeping in such a divine hypnosis that it's very, you know, so
very convincing.
So I'm glad to say that I'm coming out of it. I'm definitely feeling like I'm making progress, and we love your books. Oh, fantastic. You know, they are fantastic.
Thank you. It'll just be these last few ideas now, because we love truth so much. We want to experience it, and the idea that we could lose it terrifies us. You know, so it's just to question this, and I had to look at this myself. I had to come to know the real conviction I cannot lose it, and then I stopped experiencing losing it. You know, it stopped being an
That's
experience.
beautiful.
Yeah. And anyone
Yeah.
can do the same thing. It's really advised to do that same thing.
Same over and over. You know, it reminds me of The Wizard of Oz. I never understood why I loved that movie so much. It was all about this.
There's a lot of wisdom in that movie, yes, definitely.
You know, you never. So I'm going to say, can I really lose this?
Yeah.
Thank you,
And you'll
Helen.
know when you no longer believe that thought, because peace will be constant. It won't be an
Okay.
experience, it'll be constant. If you're here, it's here, Numenon. Peace must be always here. You can't lose it if it is you, because you would have to go. You'd have to stop existing somehow.
Right.
So,
Thank you so much.
lovely. It's a useful question for everyone, so thank you. Thank you. Paul, we'll just go to Paul.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to put this light on here. It's rather dark and suddenly. There we go. Sorry about that. Carry on. Lovely to meet you.
Twice. So you said like the great enlightened beings of the past abandoned the idea of like knowing anything. So does that mean we have to look at gaining knowledge as you just consume knowledge and then watch what the mind does with it? Because, for example, I have, you know, an interest in just exploring like quantum ideas about what we are. But I try to do it from a perspective of not eventually I'm going to figure it out or we're going to figure it out. I just do it purely from a perspective of enjoyment and just
Yeah.
what the mind does with the information. I mean,
Yeah.
is that acceptable, or is that me identifying with mind again?
If you're doing it for fun, if it's some, you know, and you know, awakening doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to lose the capacity to use your mind when you want to, and to do something fun like that. It's fine. It's really just coming to see there might be another way also to find out what I am, to experience myself. And that for that, I'm not going to, you know, mind can still be thinking and doing whatever that you want to, what it wants to think about. You know, and for myself, I still love to read, and you know, I can engage my mind if I want to, but my default has kind of switched over to just being that, where I'm not thinking about myself. For most people, the only reason they're suffering is because they the default setting is to go to the mind straight away to try to find out what we are. Yeah, it's not one or the other. It's not like I've got to experience myself and stop thinking completely. It's just that I can experience myself, and thoughts can just keep on. Mind can function as well. We're only going to suffer if we try to pick one of those. You know, so if our default setting is just to experience what we actually are, this place of not knowing, then mind will quite happily function in whatever way we want it to. It'll go quiet when we don't need it. You know, that's the thing. And then we can re-engage it when we want to. It's not so much, you know, I still love to read all kinds of stuff, and you know, I've always had a passion for knowledge about spiritual pathways and things like that, and you know, that went away for a little while as the awakening deepened, but then it, you know, I sort of always got my nose in a book, and it's fine. So it's the only time we suffer is when that's the only way we have to try to find out what we are. Can you see the difference with that?
Yeah, because I experienced the sudden disinterest in it all as well, because it was becoming frustrating, and that's when I kind of had the experience what I'm doing this for the wrong reasons. I'm trying to, you know, as soon as I let that go, it just became an enjoyable experience again.
Yeah, if you're not trying to get anything out of thinkingness, then it is enjoyable, like anything we do in life. If I'm not trying to get anything out of it, like if we're sitting listening to the Satsang, we're desperately trying to get somewhere out of it, something out of it, we're not going to enjoy it. If we're just listening, then that is going to be a different experience, you know. So it's really just not, you know, why are you thinking? Is it to try to get somewhere, or is it because it's fun? And if it's fun, that's always a sign that it's just happening spontaneously. Naturally, each human being, each body mind is going to have something it feels passionate about, that it loves to explore, and it's healthy and it's fun to do that. It's great. It's only because we've only had that option, we haven't realized that we can directly experience self as well, that we've kind of been struggling, because you can feel, I think you just said it actually, that you can only go so far with your mind about trying to figure out what you are, and you kind of go around in a circle then, in a thought loop, sort of thinking about the self. You probably experienced that, like a lot of us have. So it's
sharing something else I've noticed is like in conversations now, if you say it's two people, it feels like there's three all the time. There's the two minds, and then there's me watching what the two minds are doing, they're interacting. Same as if there's four people talking, then it feels like there's five.
There's sometimes a sense that interaction is going on two levels. There's like the minds talking to each other, and then there's the beingness that just is aware of it all, so that, and because mind it's always just been thinking on its own. It's just kind of a thinking machine. When you sort of really step back into the experience of the self, you're just watching the bodies move around and the mind's thinking, so that you'll get this kind of sense of being removed from it, or as if there's sort of two versions of you. There's not really a right way to describe it, but yeah, I know you know what I'm talking about. I can see.
Like what's been happening in, like, what I've been visualizing is like when the two minds are going at it, there's like the awareness in the other person, like waving over their shoulder.
Like, hi, yeah, everything's fine, and the two minds are arguing with each other, yeah.
Just like, let them do it, and then.
And that's part of the fun of being a human being. You still have a mind and a body, and you can still experience your life, but there's a knowingness of where you're really looking from. There's no fear of it ending then. There's no fear of any sort of coming to an end when that goes. The deeper you've seen what you really are. And you can pretend to have an argument with someone, and it's fun. You can have a great deal of fun. It's not a mistake that we've got a mind and body still. It's you can experience this life consciously then from that place, where you can have an argument, but you don't need to be right, or nothing's taken personally. It's a very different sort of way to live, isn't it?
Yeah, you described it well as pretending to have an argument. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, just for the fun of it, really.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Lovely. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Thank you. Okay. Lovely. So we will leave it there for tonight. Thank you for all your wonderful questions and contributions. And I will see some of you Monday at 11 a.m. Satsang UK time. So thank you. Namaste.